do it live.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the lounge.
Nice.
Cinemat. It burns. All right.
It does burn.
That's horrible.
That's a really awful sound.
Yeah.
The dog
All
is
right,
not
the
happy.
dog is going crazy with this thing. All right, so hey, welcome, Chris,
Hey.
Maria.
Hello.
Hey, everybody. We're about to talk about The Exorcist 3.
Mm-hmm.
But before we do that, Maria has created a wonderful drink for this show. What's it called, Maria?
Pazuzu's puke.
Nice.
There we go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hold it up to the camera, please.
There you go.
It is very green.
See how.
Okay. What's in it?
So in it is tequila, mango, mint, and some lime juice.
Yeah. And
right.
what, you just grind up the
Yeah,
mango?
it's a frozen drink, so some
Okay.
ice is in there too, and you put it in
how's
the
it
blender.
taste, you two?
So
Let me see.
I'm such a chicken.
it actually tastes pretty good.
Yeah, that's actually really nice.
Really?
That's- yeah.
All right, well,
So
don't
I'm
puke it
shocked.
all over me, please.
I think if I had a gallon of it, I could
Yeah, you-
definitely puke it over you.
that would
But
do it.
not for any kind
That
of
would do it.
supernatural reason.
All right, so we're going to talk about The Exorcist 3. Now, Chris,
Never
you had
seen it.
never had seen it before you watched it for the show.
Yeah, I watched it yesterday morning.
Wow. Nice.
Yeah, well, I'm one of the few people apparently that still get off Columbus / Indigenous Peoples Day.
No, I don't. I mean, I work at National Geographic. I don't even get that up. I'm wearing the Exorcist shirt too, the number 3.
So yeah.
Okay.
So I got that off, and I got the kids on the bus, and boom, sat downstairs and watched it.
There you go.
Straight through. And I'll say this: I had watched like 5 minutes of it before that,
Right.
And it's so much, but like, it just goes to show you, you know, to really get a movie, you have to sit down and you have to watch it. Like, you can't be doing other things.
This one in particular, because
Yeah.
it's both slow and creepy and quite.
And if you
There's so many visual things going on in this
Right.
film.
Like, for example, one of the things, like in the opening sequence, which is a dream sequence, you know,
Yeah.
over the credits,
Yeah.
right? Like the first time when I kind of had it on and I was like getting something together or whatever, I missed that the young boy with the rose,
Yeah.
he was like you pass him, he's like
On the street.
in a doorway,
Yeah.
and then a few blocks down, he's somewhere there. So that guy must have literally like run through a thing and
Yeah,
just
had to come back.
He must have like hauled ass down like 2 blocks
Yeah.
down the road.
All right, so this came out, I think, in 1993. I think. Directed by.
I think it might be earlier than that, like
I
90,
think it was
90.
90.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to check
think
that
it
out.
might be.
Directed by the writer of The Exorcist called William
Peter
Blatty.
Blatty, yeah.
This was not his first film. He had done
really?
The Ninth Configuration. Have you ever seen that one?
Yes,
Okay.
I have
a lot
seen
of the same
Ninth
people
Con-
in this film are in that. You know,
Yes.
not George C. Scott, of course.
Didn't you make us watch the
You're right.
Ninth
19. I did. Make you watch? Yes, I made you watch that.
Well, you brought the Ninth
Yes,
Configuration
I brought
to the
it
old
table.
show.
Yeah, 1990. You guys were right. I don't know why I thought 83.
Yeah.
William Peter Blatty, starring George C. Scott,
Yep.
Brad Dourif,
God, I love Brad Dourif.
Jason Miller,
Yep.
Fabio.
Fabio's in
Oh,
there.
I was going to say, yeah, Fabio's like
Nicole. Let's see this. The priest was played by
The guy from St. Elsewhere.
what's Ed Flanders?
yeah.
Is that his name? Yeah, Ed Flanders.
Father
Dyer.
Morning.
He was playing.
thought-
Both George C. Scott and Flanders were playing people that were in the first. Lee J. Cobb's part,
Right.
and
Okay.
then the Irish priest part.
Right.
There was a young priest that kisses her at the end. It's the one that she kisses at the end.
Oh, okay.
Of course, Jason Miller, Brad Dourif, Nicole Williamson. He played the priest, and then Scott Wilson.
Yes.
Nancy Fish, who was the creepy nurse lady, but turned
kind
out to
of
be
the
a nice
older-
lady.
yeah, the older
I can't
nurse
figure out what her
lady, yeah.
thing was. George DeSenza, Don Gordon. I mean, there's a lot. Lee Richardson, who makes the joke, "What's your favorite movie?" The Fly. Well, he was in The Fly too, which is funny.
I didn't know
Interestingly enough, this is Dahmer's favorite film.
that. Who?
Jeffrey Dahmer.
Jeffrey
Je-
Dahmer.
this was
This is what
Serial
this is
killer,
what
yeah.
he would use when he would drug his victims. He'd put this on while the drugs were taking effect, and then he
Wait
would.
a minute. Maybe my timeline is messed up. He would do that with The Exorcist or The Exorcist 3?
Exorcist 3.
Dahmer was still active in
I
1990?
think so. I mean, that's an IMDb fact. I'm just saying.
Oh, okay. I'm not saying it's
and
wrong.
he killed as many people as the Gemini killer killed as well.
Oh
Which is so freaking weird. So Maria and I watched it. I had seen it. We both had seen it before. I think
Yeah.
Maria, you said you had seen it in the theater.
Right. That's how I
this
knew
is
it was
one-
before 93 because it was before I had kids.
This is one that if you had seen it in the theater, it would have been insane. With Brad Dourif's stuff that he's doing in this and how tight everything was.
Well, Brad Dourif is like, he's probably like the nicest guy in the world,
maybe. I have
but
no
like he
idea.
always seems so like he was like the Chucky doll.
Yeah.
And like he was like this really weird dude in David Lynch's Dune. He was in Blue Velvet also.
No,
He's
he's
a
in
David Lynch
everything.
regular.
He's in everything.
And he always plays like this really off sadist. Basically.
Well, not in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, of course. He's in
Billy,
Cuckoo's Nest. Yeah.
Billy, I think was his
Yeah.
name. All right, so this is really the unofficial sequel to The Exorcist. Nobody wants to talk about The Exorcist 2, The Heretic.
Oh, John Borman.
John Borman.
Yeah, but it was so bad.
William Peter Blatty didn't want to talk about it. William Friedkin doesn't want to talk about it. This is the one that
Oh, yeah.
as a matter of fact, Friedkin was going to direct it and then
Really?
changed his mind at the last second. And William Peter Blatty took over. And the studio, okay, so it was originally called Legion, which is based on his book.
Yeah, I was going to say his
called
book
Legion.
is called Legion.
Legion. And they decided to change it to Exorcist 3. Now, in the book, Legion, there is no exorcism. It ends differently than it ends in the movie. Because the studio made them put in, if it's a movie called The Exorcist, we need an exorcism in
Sure, yeah.
If you've seen the other version, there's another version which is actually shorter than this one. There is no exorcism, and it ends the way this one ends with George C. Scott shooting. Yeah. But he just shoots him. There's no preamble. There's no exorcism. There's none of that.
Oh, wow.
All that special effects he had to do. As a matter of fact, Jason Miller they contacted Jason Miller. They said he was unavailable. Well, it turns out he was a raging alcoholic and couldn't remember his longer lines. So that's why Brad Dourif, there's a whole movie with just Brad Dourif in it. No Jason Miller.
Really?
Yep, just Brad Dourif. That was the original concept of the film. That he'd be the Gemini killer,
Right.
Who you knew the other priest is in there, but you're not physically seeing him. Which I think seeing him is fantastic. I mean, I love seeing Jason Miller.
Well, it is such a shock when you first see him.
Yeah.
You know, when he pops up and you're like, oh man, that's the guy.
He was dead 15 years ago.
Yeah.
All right. So the plot of the film takes place 15 years later. Mm-hmm. Some killings start happening. Ritualized killings start happening. The detective from the first movie, who was played by Lee J. Cobb, I forget his name. Get the character name.
Isn't it like Kirkland or something
It's
like
Kirkland,
that?
I think.
Something. It starts with a K.
Yeah.
I know that much.
Kinderman.
Kinderman.
And in all these, matter of fact, everybody that's getting murdered has a K in their name.
Yeah, they
So
mentioned
that's
that in
one
the
of the
film,
other
yeah.
shticks.
Oh, just throwing this out here. This just dawned on me. Kinder in German is like child, so it's like man-child or child-man.
Okay.
I have no idea if that means anything or not.
I don't know.
Just
That was his name in the book.
oh maybe.
So
Okay.
that was his name in the first movie, The Exorcist.
Oh, okay. What?
So there's all these ritualized killings going on. George C. Scott, as a detective, is meeting with Ed Flanders, the priest, because they're on the anniversary of their friend's death, Damien's death, trying to cheer each other up. They both say the other one's depressed. They're cheering each other up. But at the same time, these ritualistic murders are happening.
Right.
And George C. Scott Kinderman is recognizing the Gemini killer's telltale signs.
Right. His MO.
No one else is seeing it. He's seeing it. The fingers, stuff that they never reported in public. He was getting. But the other thing that's so this most of this movie takes place in a hospital.
Yeah, it really does.
Yeah.
Like a huge portion of it. I was really enjoying the shots of Georgetown and DC
Yeah, no, it was
and
fun.
kind of the outside part of it.
Clyde's, they're down at Clyde's.
Yeah, and I liked the whole part where, you know, they were. I felt that opening credit sequence was like super creepy, and like that's the way you make something scary, just by having empty streets.
We'll talk about a few scenes in here, but the opening, the religious shots, the religious iconography he's doing. And he's a religious dude. I think I don't know if he was in the seminary or.
Oh.
He was. It's not in the seminary, but he was went to a school run by
Jesuit priest.
By Jesuit priests.
Okay.
So that's where because he wrote the original Exorcist,
yeah.
which is based on an exorcism in Mount Rainier, Maryland.
Right.
And he did it. He learned about it through the Jesuits who were teaching him.
Okay.
And he learned about all the lore.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
So
Yeah, so he's got a background. So his,
pretty accurate when it comes to the procedures for
yeah,
Right.
exorcisms.
and the religious information about exorcisms even. I'm listening to Legion. There's so much that's obviously there's more. There's flashbacks in the book of the Gemini killer's life,
Right.
and why he turned out the way he turns out. He was a scientist. He was a doctor or something.
So let me just ask you this, since you're actually listening to the book itself right now. So are they at all related? Like
Who?
Exorcist 1 and Legion. Are the books related? Are the stories related at all?
Yeah, there's same characters in the story.
Okay, so it's
Matter
the
of
same
fact, I think
characters.
that carp story he tells in this one,
Oh, yeah.
I think he tells in The Exorcist too. At least that's what I'm hearing.
Oh, wow.
Some of the stuff that was in one is in the other as well.
Well, like I was telling you, when the priest talked about the lemon drops,
Right.
that's actually from the book Exorcist, the Exorcist one.
Okay.
Where
okay.
the priest says, "I got addicted to them because I had to listen to children give
Their
confession all the time.
Right,
And I smell
okay.
lemon
Yeah.
drops."
I mean, so this starts with that crazy Christ bleeding, I think,
Yeah.
out of his eye, or I forget.
Just the opening of the
when
eyeballs.
the
pretty
church doors
creepy.
open up.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's pretty creepy.
So, so he's figuring out all these murders are happening. There's a creepy doctor in the hospital played by Scott Wilson, who's great, and he was also great in the Ninth Configuration. Remember?
That's right.
Who's taking care of this patient X that they found 15 years ago, who's been catatonic for 15 years
Yeah.
or 12 years, 13 years, and started to wake up. And they're studying this guy. There's heart monitors in there. There's brain scans. They're doing all this stuff. And somehow George C. Scott stumbles upon that. He stumbles upon a room full of old people, catatonic old people.
Yep.
This is the creepiest hospital
Ever.
ever. I mean, there's
Like, it's
everywhere
pretty
you
weird.
turn. And there's creepy scenes where clocks are stopping and like nobody's reacting to the clock. There's so much creepy stuff that just is happening that
Yeah.
is it works. It works.
Yeah.
It works. It gets in there.
Well, I think it also, I think a lot of people, I'm not one of them, but a lot of people are generally creeped out by hospitals anyway.
They are. They're
Yeah.
yeah.
Because,
Especially when they're
a lot of
night.
people, and the truth is, let's be real, a lot of people have really negative associations because maybe, grandma or
You.
somebody, or you got like treatment there or
Right.
died there.
Right.
So yeah, there's a lot of negative connotation or whatever that goes along with that. So setting it mostly in the hospital, which you're right, it's like almost all in the hospital.
Well, and this weird thing. Okay.
Well, it's
so
just
much-
the
go ahead.
dementia ward and it's the dementia ward and the mental health ward. Too.
Yeah.
Well,
Like,
that
those are
where all the old catatonics are.
Yeah.
I mean, now he's being George C. Scott's very comfortable. The
Yeah.
woman's kind of, you're my son. Oh, it'd be nice if I were your son. That would
Yeah.
be. Okay, so his friend, the priest, ends up getting murdered by the
Oh,
Gemini.
yeah.
All his blood is taken out of his body. And the interactions that people have in this hospital with the nurses and the just like weird scenes where somebody starts yelling down the hall and you'll see a scene of a statue with its head chopped off and
Yeah.
just and that Joker scene where that statue in that room had the Joker mask and a knife.
Oh, yeah,
Just weird stuff going on. And then you get to patient X.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Maria, let's take it. Let's throw some of your stuff. So did you see The Exorcist in the theater? Probably not.
No, because I was too young for
Okay,
that. So
okay.
I saw The Exorcist, on VHS or
Yeah.
whatever.
And going into this one, what were you expecting?
Going into this one, I was
Yeah.
excited because I'd seen the commercials. And like they even said that on one of the trailers, they showed something that actually he pulled from the movie. One of the special effects in the trailer didn't exist in the movie.
All their faces changing.
Yeah. And but I was really looking forward to it because I liked the bringing back of Father Karras, like what was going to happen. And I liked the characters that were in there. And I had subsequently, like I saw The Exorcist, then I read the book The Exorcist, and I realized that in the book, the relationship between the priest and the police officer was much deeper than it was in the original Exorcist.
Right.
So it was more akin to what you see in The
This
Heretic.
one.
So so I was just really excited and hoping that it was good because The Exorcist 2 was so bad.
It was Richard Burton was horrible.
It was horrible.
It was horrible.
Richard Burton was cashing some checks there at the end.
He was. He had a few divorces from
Yeah.
Elizabeth Taylor. I think he had to pay for.
Something.
Yeah. I
also died.
didn't see The Exorcist 2 when it came out. I don't think I did because I don't remember it.
The only
I have
thing
it, but
I almost don't remember anything about The Exorcist 2 except there's like a scene where Reagan, because she's back in The Exorcist 2, is all hooked up to these machines, and like there's like
Louise Fletcher is.
ghostly versions are like the demon of her, and then maybe it's an angel on the other side.
Yeah.
They're both grabbing at her heart, and it's beating all fast.
Yeah.
That's about the only thing I remember
Yeah.
about The Exorcist. And I do remember like there was some, or maybe that's the original Exorcist. No, that was the original because that was Von Sydow. So
Well, the only scene I remember from Heretic before I bought it was her walking on the top of the building, walking to the edge of the building.
I don't even remember that.
With her in her gown and all that.
Yeah.
Up in the apartment that she was in. So this is a Brad Dourif like tour de force.
Oh yeah.
I mean, tour de force. He has long, creepy monologues.
Sure.
That George C. Scott is just sitting there, just doing nothing. Just,
Yeah.
I don't know if he's not even reacting hardly, and it's just amazing to listen to him do that.
Oh, he's
And he had to do all that stuff, and Karras couldn't remember. The Jason Miller couldn't remember, which is why his was so short. But Dourif, man, he really pulls this thing off.
yeah, he is. He's physically a creepy looking dude. You know, he looks a little weird.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah, intense. He's intense.
Well, I mean, and I don't mean this in like a negative way. I think he's, like I said, I love his work.
Yeah,
I think he's probably like a super nice guy, but his facial dimensions are a little weird, right? Like they're a little off.
Well, to be fair, he's shooting super wide angle in this too,
That's
and
true.
tight. Super wide angle and tight at the same time.
But I mean, he
which
looked
is
a
gonna
little
just
weird
throw him
in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Oh yeah,
looks
he
weird
does
in
that. Just,
Doom.
he's unique. It's like a
Yeah.
William Dafoe. William Dafoe.
Yeah, that's a weird looking dude too.
Right. But unique and powerful. Can be very powerful if used in the right way. So he was just great in this film.
Yeah.
Just powerful. George C. Scott, as crazy as it sounds, his outbursts that he did and his reactions to things really played into the frustration he's having about how horrible the world is.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I disagree some.
You didn't like it.
I thought and I was glad I was vindicated because he was nominated for a Razzie for this.
He was
Yes,
for this?
yes,
Wow.
because I thought he was just way over the top. Like when he's talking to everybody
was.
in the room about the Gemini killer, and he's getting so angry, and he starts to tear up and cry and just give me a minute. I'm like, settle the F down. I mean, just
And his just
you know,
instant, he's yelling.
I get it that they're not listening to you. You want them
He's
to
dealing
listen.
with the carpet home. He hasn't had a bath for 3 days.
The carpet, the thing, but it's just I just found his performance a little over the top. Like,
Well,
it was
there's no question. That is
in
true.
some
It is.
places I appreciate it. Other places I was just like,
Yeah.
no.
See, now that's interesting because for me, I did find like his sudden out of nowhere yelling to be a little off-putting. But I'll be honest with you. And it's funny because usually, and I think this is kind of dialogue that might work on the page, but doesn't work when it's spoken to one another. Him and the priest, when they had their little tete-a-tetes, right? Their unbelievably obscure reference, high-minded, obviously very well-educated kind of jabs back and forth. I surprisingly found that unbelievably unrealistic. Like
It's
I did not.
exactly how the book is written.
It's
Well, he's-
exactly how.
okay.
Exorcist
Well, then
1
that's
too
that-
is.
Well,
Yeah.
the Legion is that they're having the exact same
Like right out of the book.
patter back and forth.
Yes.
And
And
I think
Kinderman's
maybe-
always being sarcastic. And
And I feel like it was also done to show his perception and his intelligence
Yeah.
as a detective.
Yeah, and I mean,
You know.
I got that vibe because, and sometimes this is a trope we don't see as much anymore, and it's not really a trope, but like I've always felt that a lot of times you'll have that, or we did see it in the first season of what was that show with True Detective. The first season of True Detective, you had the one detective who's like super philosophical and intellectual, and the other guys who's like just a rock hard realist. But I do feel like that happens sometimes where you have this trope of like this erudite detective. Do you know what I mean? Who's like above it all and can see things that others can't.
yeah.
Because most cops, and truth be told, you know, and I'm not saying this is the case, and you know, but a lot of police have been, you know, they come up through the ranks and they have an understanding of things from a very realistic level. Do you know what I
he's
mean?
seen everything.
Yeah.
I mean, again, the book really gets into his head
Oh, okay.
about all the things he's seen. The other thing in the book that isn't really played out in the film is everybody's worried that he's got dementia. He's
Oh, really?
forgetting his hat. He's forgetting names in the book. So that doesn't really play out in this.
No, I
But
didn't get
the
that vibe at
overacting
all.
I get, because there's a scene where he's rushing home to get to the house, and he's in the cop car, and he's like, biting his fist. It's
I
like,
think we started to laugh at that.
a
part. We
little
did
bit,
get
but
a little.
listen. I've seen George C. Scott in Hardcore. I mean, you can't get any like more overacting than what's going on in there. So
I don't know.
And
like,
I just.
I give him a pass on
Oh,
hardcore.
he's seeing his daughter up there.
Yeah, I think if I had
it.
to see that, like if I had to see that, I'd probably
Shut it off.
I'd probably freak out too. You know.
But there are so many just interesting Peter Blatty, and I know you're joking about the ninth configuration, but there's stuff that goes on in that film.
Oh,
And Scott Wilson's in that as well, and Jason Miller, and it's just wacky.
Oh, yeah.
and like that scene that you talk about, the heaven scene where Patrick Ewing is and Samuel Jackson in Exorcist 3, where he goes up in heaven, he talks to the little boy.
yeah,
I guess
and
it's
he's
heaven,
walking
wherever he is.
It seems like heaven. They're walking through
That's
like
where we see
almost
Fabio.
Or
like
he's like in
Fabio shows up.
purgatory, like
Yeah.
Fabio's-
he's not heaven nor hell yet. He's like it's like a waiting room.
Yeah,
kind of.
whatever.
Yeah,
He's
that's
that's his
that's
dream,
a
and
good
he's
look.
talking to
Yeah.
a little kid, and he bumps into Patrick Ewing as an angel,
Yeah.
and Fabio's
Fabio's
in
there.
there, and Samuel L. Jackson's a blind man.
Oh, I
with
didn't
with a voice
notice.
dubbed in. Yeah,
Really, I did not notice that.
different voice. And then they do okay. So let's talk about a couple scenes.
Yeah, sure.
There's a scene in the autopsy room where they introduce the
Head chopper, the,
head
Yeah.
lopper.
head chopper, right?
It's a little stiff.
Yeah,
That's again, it's played so straight, but yet gets its point across.
yeah.
Right.
To the point where you see that scene that we're going to talk about, which is that hallway scene with the nurse in the red dress, the red sweater, has that 8-minute, 9-minute walking
So,
around.
yeah,
I don't know how
just
long
her
that
doing her
is, where the
thing.
cop comes in and goes away. And
And then the other cop comes in, and you're like, "Oh, they're together. It's going to be okay."
Right.
And then he leaves, like stage left, basically.
right, stage left. She goes in that room. It's a little
Have a
creepy.
little-
You're trying to figure, you're hearing some weird
so
sound.
you have like a jump scare at one point
Well,
in time.
You do.
She goes
yeah.
in that room. She's
Yeah.
hearing this weird clicking. Turns out it's a drink that
It's the ice is crumbling.
That's in Legion.
Yeah. Oh, is it?
That's in Legion. Then the guy jumps out because he's sleeping, I guess.
yeah.
So you think that's it? Jump scare's
Yeah.
over,
Yeah.
and then
out of nowhere?
you
Yeah.
see that scene where there's no murders happening on screen. Everything's off screen, and that scene is just out of this out of this world. It's crazy.
I like that scene a lot, especially like she goes in and you think something terrible is going to happen to her in there, and she comes out and you're like, oh, okay. And then all of a sudden, it's literally what, a second and a half of screen time when that
After
guy,
9 minutes of hallway,
yeah, it's like whoosh, and
Yeah.
you're like, oh my god.
yeah. No, it's
Now I
it's-
will say this though, with the whole headlopper thing,
Yeah,
especially in that sequence, I was kind of surprised we didn't get a cleanup scene after that. Because you know how, like, with the father, they make the point of that he drained out all the blood.
Right.
That's why when he cut the head off, there's no mess.
Right.
Right.
because he got all the blood out.
Right. And, you know,
Because he
that
drugged him with enough, whatever that is,
just the right amount.
so you don't kill him,
Yeah.
keep him alive, drain the blood.
Drains the blood, dies, lops off the head. I'm not sure if you could really drain a body that fully. I mean, there's other juices in the body.
There's all kinds of things going on in
I
this
know.
film that there's
But
no
still,
way.
the point being is though that like, so I was wondering, like, did he just kill her right there, or did he like knock her out, drug her? And we didn't find out what happened to her, like if she was ritualistically mutilated.
Yeah, they mentioned it, but I don't think I think we see her like drag her out on a gurney.
Yeah. Plus, I am going to throw this out here too. There's that scene with the lady crawling around on the ceiling.
Oh
Yeah,
my
I love
God,
that
the
one.
old lady on the
That's
ceiling.
so
Yeah, that's
fantastic.
freaking
I
great.
love that.
No, it's so good.
But
It's
here's
so
the,
good, and
It's my
it's
favorite. It's
shot
one of my
in such a
favorites.
way that, I mean, it's just well done.
Yeah.
it's well done.
and she crawls out
She
into the
looks at
hallway
him.
as the other, like the janitor comes
Yeah.
in.
Yeah.
It's all very well done. But one of the things I did start to, after a while, especially after the scene where he discovers the body of a nurse because the old lady takes her nurse's outfit and
Right.
goes to go
Right.
after his daughter, right? Like at some point I was like, all right, are we just going to shut this hospital down at some point? There's been like 4 people that have
Well, that's
gotten
what I mean.
murdered at this point in the
You remember
hospital.
the hospital in Halloween 2 that went off?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's what I mean. That's why hospitals are creepy because all this stuff goes on.
I know.
And people they don't care. They just keep going. And the
Well, I
way
mean,
the nurses are acting and
Yeah.
everyone's acting weird in the hospital just from the get-go.
But I think it might be a case, and this is just total speculation. I mean, I think it's one of those things where hospitals are probably really hard to just shut down.
Well, you can't. I mean, think of all the people.
I know,
can't
you know,
just
yeah,
You mean
they-
to
remove
shoot in? To
everybody.
actually shoot in? Or what do you mean?
No, I
Like
meant
he's
like
like-
if there was a couple of murders inside of
Oh,
a
no. You'd have
hospital,
to
like
keep... No.
I mean, they would probably do their best to get most of the people out and send them to neighboring facilities. But there's going to be some people that are like, hey, look, they're too sick to move.
I mean, do you really think there's hospitals with 40 catatonic people walking around in one room?
I don't know. Did you ever see Awakenings?
Yeah, but I mean...
That's based on a true story. I don't know how
Yeah.
precise it is, but
Yeah.
like, and now granted, that was also set in like the 70s, I think.
Right. I mean, I don't know.
But like that was
You
one
gotta
of those
sus-
ones where like, there was there were tons of those people that never, that were essentially catatonic, completely catatonic. Over,
That's who he was using to do, I guess, the killings? He would get in their
yes.
bodies?
He
and-
would basically, it's my understanding that the way that the Gemini killer had taken up residence within Father Karras is he would do the same thing to them, but considering their brains weren't completely damaged the way Karras's was,
Right.
that they were more, he could move around in them much easier.
Yeah, he could use them.
Right.
I mean, I did like the story about how he got into Karras, how he, going back to 15 years earlier,
Yeah.
going down those steps,
Yeah.
and how he got in there and how long it took him because the brain was
So
dead.
mush.
The brain was
Yeah.
dead. There's so many weird things that go on in this film that this is what I love about Peter Blatty's stuff. He just throws things in there, and they all have a meaning. It's not thrown in for no reason.
Yeah.
What are you going to say, Maria?
Well, the nurse talks about it too. Like the nurse knows something's up because when she's talking, you first think it's adversarial, but somehow she and George C. Scott.
It's
come-
a weird
Yeah.
relationship she had.
And
with him,
when
for
she
sure.
starts to talk about, well, it's really strange because everything slows down, but his brain waves go up. Like, but whenever he goes into these like trance things, and so she knew something was happening. She just didn't know what it was, and what
Yeah.
was happening was those are the times somehow he was leaving the body and inhabiting somebody else's body to
Right.
do the killing
And
and then
she-
coming back.
And she had been studying. She had been
Yeah.
taking care of him for 15 years, I
Yeah,
guess,
for a
right?
long
She
time.
had been there the whole time.
At least, yeah.
And she heard the one time he said something nice or something or
Yeah.
something. That's when Kara
Protect
said
your
about-
servant or something like that.
servant,
Yeah.
which, okay. Favorite scene. Did you have a favorite scene?
I like the scenes when the Gemini killer's talking.
Yeah.
I like it. I liked
It's amazing
the,
how he holds our attention with that.
Well, and it's like I like when dialogue drives the plot, and I liked so that's why I really liked it. It reminded me of like Midnight Mass and some of those. I don't know who produces those, but he does like the haunted. Haunted
Mike,
Imposters. He does a lot of
yeah, I
it
know
through
you're talking about,
dialogue,
right.
and I liked those
Good writing.
scenes. Yeah, like where you learned so much, and then he was just such a good actor though too. The guy who plays the Gemini killer.
Oh my
He was
God.
just so you were just riveted by what he was saying every minute to figure out what was going on. So I liked this scene when he kind of gave you the whole exposition, but then he still was kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You?
I absolutely love the opening credit sequence, the dream sequence, the priest is running across the street, and then because it's one shot, right?
Yeah.
It's one shot walking down the street in Georgetown somewhere. The priest runs through he goes from left side to right side. And then obviously that guy hightails it a few more blocks down the road and then runs from the other side across. Same thing. The kid is in the doorway, and then he must, as soon as the camera passes, he probably darts through the building, runs down there, and then has to stand on the corner like he's been there the whole time.
Yeah. Was he dead or alive when he comes back that second time?
I'm not.
forget.
I think he was already dead because I think that basically
Yeah.
the next scene we really see is them down at the riverfront.
Yeah.
With the body and everything. So I really like that. But I mean, there was the smoke, and even in sometimes it was just, hey, we're gonna run the smoke backwards. But the Exorcist steps themselves were big in that sequence, and so the steps themselves are just a really creepy thing, especially if you've seen them in real life.
Everybody has.
Yeah,
that
everybody lives around
We go-
here.
we
Yeah.
go visit them.
Yeah, and so it's weird, but of course then old ladies on the ceiling. That's pretty weird too.
That's okay. Yeah, I'm gonna say obviously my favorite scene is the long hallway shot.
Yeah.
Just from a technical standpoint, there's nothing going on camera work in that.
Yeah.
After the jump scare, actually before the jump scare, and then you're back in the hall. You go, okay, he faked us out with a jump scare, and then he hits us with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then just the technical stuff going on in that scene with a woman, the old lady, crab walks on the ceiling.
Yeah, that's pretty.
I
crazy.
just love the way it's just a shot. There's nothing. There's no showiness in that.
Right.
The only showiness is the exorcism that they had to cram into the movie.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And he admits that. He's like, look, they made me do it. I tried to do the best I could with what I was given.
Sure.
And I hope it worked out. But it does feel like that priest comes out of nowhere.
Totally. Like you feel like all of those shots of him before of Nicol Williamson, like as Father Mourning. I actually had to pause the movie and go look back at the original Exorcist because I was like, wait a minute, is this guy supposed to be Max von Sydow? And he's not.
No, it's not.
No.
Was he someone from the old Exorcist? No, he's just another priest.
He's just another priest, but
He's-
his
well, he-
name also started with an M. I think.
So what does that mean?
No, with a K.
No,
Is it
Father.
with a K?
No, what do you call
okay.
it? Max von Sydow's priest.
Oh.
He was Father Maris.
Yeah, he was Father Maris.
And so I couldn't remember if Mourning and Maris were the same guy.
The priest.
It's been a long time since I've seen it.
This priest was a priest who had done an exorcism, but an exorcism prior to something else, and they say that his hair turned white. So that's
Right.
why he had that white hair. But he
understand,
wasn't
but-
really tied to the original
Okay.
exorcism.
That's what I mean.
So
It
they
was tossed
put
in for this film.
his character in. I actually liked the ending exorcism. I thought it was really, really good, and I liked that they put it in the movie.
Well, it was good. I mean, technically, it was good. Technically, it was good. It's just I feel. I mean, I give Blatty a lot of credit for. He said. I read a thing where he was saying they said if the screening goes well, you don't have to have an exorcism, and I guess they picked a screening at some. Like it was just like the worst people you could get for a
Sure,
screening.
yeah.
And they're like, "See, you got to do something.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
ridiculous." And he's like, "All right, listen. You know what? I'll just do what I got to do,
Right.
and I'll do the best I can." And you have Jason Miller in that stuff. I mean, I love seeing Jason Miller in the film. To me, I have so much sympathy for that character,
Yeah.
and it made me feel even more something for him from the first film because he sacrifices himself, and then he still gets this guy gets inside him, this horrible demon,
Yeah.
and he's dealing with this in the end where he goes, "Bill, shoot now, shoot!" You know that thing
Yeah,
where
yeah.
he wakes up and he says, "Shoot him now."
Yeah.
I mean, I just thought he was great.
You know what I did like about that sequence too? George C. Scott does not hesitate.
No.
Like his character Kinderman, he's not like he's just like pow pow pow.
Yeah.
You know, he's like he's telling it's the word now is barely out of his mouth and he's pulling the trigger.
That's a big gun too.
Yeah. Well, so the other part of this was though, and I have to admit, and this is just sometimes this happens to me, like my rational brain kicks in.
Can't do that. But
I know,
okay.
but like there's a scene at the end where he and his like sidekick, I won't say sidekick, but his partner,
yeah.
they're looking down at the grave of Father Karras, right? And I'm like, he should probably be in jail. You can't go around shooting insane people inside of a hospital. You know?
Okay, yeah.
You know, like-
No,
you
no,
can't go
I
around
thought that too. But then I thought, you know what? No, because there's a dead priest in that room. There's a dead priest on the floor. And
Oh, yeah.
there, from the exorcism
Mangled.
part. And George C. Scott wasn't in the best condition himself. Like he had
Right.
gotten banged up a little. So
Yeah,
I
it's
was
amazing.
Like, well,
he
he
fell.
could've
He
called-
fell a long way.
Yeah.
I don't know
It's
how
like
his elbow,
you
how
call
he
it
could pick the gun up.
self-defense.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, that's a really good point. I didn't think about
And the other
that.
thing about that grave, which I think I got from some other article or maybe the book, is there was another body in that grave they had to dig out first. There was a priest that ended up that was taking care of Maris's body when they took it to the hospital after he died on the steps.
Okay.
That priest that's where the replacement thing happened. He ends up getting killed. He ends up in the grave. They have to dig him out they don't show this in the movie, but they have to dig him out.
No, but they
first.
refer to it because they dig up Father Karras when George C. Scott says, I think that's Father Karras in there. So they dig him up and they're like, that's not him. That's when they realize it. And the Gemini killer had said, he goes, yeah, I came out. You should have seen the guy who has to guard the priest who has to guard the.
Yeah, he looked.
He looked shocked, and so I had to. That's who he put in there.
I also never realized. Watching this again, I never realized how many times Brad Dourif's character premeditated the person who was going to die next in his little sayings he was making.
Yeah.
Jack in the corner. That was a little
Yeah.
kid. Did you catch the little what's Chucky?
Yeah, child's play.
Did you get his little child's play and they cut right to that redheaded kid?
They did make it a child's play joke. Yeah, I noticed that. Yeah.
So, but I never realized how many times in his rantings that he was. Now he threatened him a couple of times about his daughter.
Right.
I figured that out. But like even the nurse with the red sweater, he said that right before she died that night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I hadn't
he
picked
said
that. I hadn't
Amy.
picked that up.
And maybe it's
Annie something.
Amy.
Amy.
Yeah.
But the funny thing is, like when he was like saying something about going to the dance, I'm like, he's talking about your dancer daughter.
Right.
All right, ace detective, you can't figure that out. Like a little part of me was like, come on, man. Maybe that was a more popular.
What are you saying? What are you saying?
It was a more popular phrase from George C. Scott's Kinderman's time, whatever. That you wouldn't link those two, but I was like,
Yeah.
The other scene I like that you briefly referred to is when the priest is talking to George C. Scott, and again you're getting a lot of exposition, but at the same time the clock stops ticking, and George C. Scott looks over, but the priest keeps going, just drinking his whiskey, and then it's when the door opens.
Yeah,
and George C. Scott, and then George C. Scott finally walks out, and that's when you get a jump scare.
That jump scare. That's what I mean about Blatty. Blatty plays a little like he I think he was a comedy writer. Actually.
really?
Yep. I believe he was a comedy writer.
That's interesting.
Yep. And he wrote The Exorcist and it was a huge hit, right? I don't know, And you can tell in the Ninth Configuration and in this film, he's trying this stuff going on that's humorous. He's trying to be funny.
Yeah.
Their banter's, funny. The fact that he's throwing in some of those like Fabio and these like weird things that are happening, and his religious beliefs crop up in all like Ninth Configuration is all about is there a God or not a God, and he's constantly questioning his beliefs.
Yeah.
I mean, Exorcist was definitely that.
Oh, definitely.
Right?
Yeah.
But it was serious. Friedkin took it and made a serious film. This one, he was able to do a little bit of both.
Yeah.
And I appreciate as a person who works and do what I do, I appreciate the simplicity of what he's doing in these movies.
Okay.
Just showing a statue with its head chopped off, is creepy.
Yeah.
And the scene you're talking about where the dream sequence at the beginning where the doors open up and everything comes in and the Jesus is bleeding.
Yeah,
Even
crying
Jesus
tears,
bleeding on the little crucifix that the guy with the white hair picks up.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's questioning a lot of different things.
I mean, I think what he's playing on there, and this is part of it, is that once again, and we've talked about this a little bit, but like when you're raised, whether you're Catholic or like me, Protestant, you're raised with these ideas and the idea of God and heaven and hell and afterlife, and you have to say as a person, if you believe in that stuff, you have to at least make more room than an atheist would for the idea of spirits and demons and devils and things like that. Do you know what I mean? You have to. Like if you believe in God and you believe in afterlife and you believe in a kind of a Christian setup.
Well, if you believe in God,
right,
you believe in the devil.
Not necessarily.
Well, not necessarily.
What? I mean, isn't that
a lot of people?
That's a Christian belief.
Yeah.
But not
Yeah.
other religions that have gods
don't
have
necessarily
a devil, don't have the
have a
opposite.
Hades.
No.
So yeah, but no. So but I think what that does is that plays into kind of those little, it plays into your Sunday school fears. Do you know what I mean? Like as a little kid, you might have been concerned about the devil, It's like one of my favorite lines from the movie The Prophecy, which is, all about angels and devils and stuff. There's a great scene where Viggo Mortensen plays Lucifer, and he's talking to Elias Koteas's priest, and he's like, you used to pray in your bed, scared that I was under the bed. And he goes like, I heard everything you said, kind of thing. And you're just like, oh, that's such a freaky thing, Yeah. And but yeah, no. This movie was. I'm glad you guys selected it. I enjoyed it thoroughly.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing he does is he humanizes priests.
Oh, 100%.
The priests, the priests have personalities and
they eat food. They eat regular food.
They're like humans, but he also shows like the way in which they live, like the little single bed, and but also a lot of times if you were raised Catholic, the priests were like, oh, and so he I like that he humanizes them and then makes them people. One likes to go see movies. They like to.
Well, he did that in The Exorcist too.
Yeah, he did.
That whole Karis with his mother, that whole thing.
I
with
know.
his mother.
Timmy.
Did you know? Okay, the scene in the confessional where the priest gets
Oh yeah.
the voice that's talking in the other,
Yeah.
that was Colleen Dewhurst. That was George C. Scott's wife at one point.
Oh really?
Yeah, she was doing that
That's
weird
Old lady, scratchy old lady
yeah.
voice. Yeah.
So
That 3 packs a day.
I really appreciate William Peter Blatty. Look it up. He was a comedy writer before this. So
Really? That's so crazy.
Yeah, and
It's a funny thing. I actually read or heard a podcast about the original Exorcist. And do you realize that The Exorcist was one of the first films that opened what we would consider wide in the history of movies? It used to be that what they would do is they would open a movie in like the 20 biggest cities. They would take the reviews if they were good and they would plaster them, and the movie would spread slowly out through the rest of the country, smaller cities and then to the rural areas. But with The Exorcist, they tried something completely different. They called it four-walling, where what they did was they opened it on like 400 screens, which was they opened it everywhere, all at the same time. And they put up, billboards and all sorts of newspaper ads and all these kinds of things all at once, and TV and radio. And they did it all at once because they were scared that it would get such terrible reviews.
Oh wow!
Because they thought people would have such a visceral reaction.
A backlash with the Catholic Church. Everybody
people would have such a visceral reaction. They just were like, "Let's throw it out there all at once and hope." And of course, it made over $100 million, which at the time was unheard of.
So my dad went and saw it in Georgetown right when it opened.
No way.
In Georgetown.
Yes.
That's so
and
awesome.
then he got a flat tire on the way home. He drove home in a flat tire, ruined the rim, everything.
'cause he just wanted to get home.
I'm not stopping.
Not stopping to get
I
home.
told you I was watching The Exorcist at my house one time, and the clock fell off the wall.
Oh my God.
While I'm watching it. Okay.
So
I don't want to buy into, I can't. I'm an atheist. I don't want to.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I can't watch this anymore.
Sure.
Dave Malcolmson, my friend, it came out in 1972. So I was 11. He goes, I just saw a movie this weekend. He threw up. Obviously the pea soup thing got a lot of people. People were fainting. And
it was bad.
Yeah, it was bad. But I think he did a good, because, okay, so it's 2 more movies came out after this one.
Yes.
It was the same movie directed by 2 different people.
Yeah, basically.
Right? Rennie Harlan, and I forget who the other...
Paul Schrader.
Oh, he did.
I think it was Paul.
Oh,
it
that's
was Rennie Harlan and Paul Schrader.
An interesting one, because he's got some religious stuff. He's
Oh
dealing
gosh.
with.
Oh, yeah.
What is that? I didn't.
It's the prequel to The Exorcist.
Yeah. So what happened
It's a
was...
Father Marin. It's a Father Marin.
I remember now. Okay, yes.
And
it was
Skarsgård plays... But
Skarsgård, okay.
Yeah.
And what happened was it was some weird contractual weird thing. Like maybe it was Schrader who delivered his version, and they were like, "This is terrible. We can't release this." So they get Rennie Harlan, who's kind of a schlockmeister,
he's great.
to like
He's great.
redo it, Or maybe it was the other way around. And then, but what started happening was, I guess there was people at the studio who were like, "Well, no, the Schrader version's actually better than this, or at least okay." And at some point, they said, "Oh, let's just release both of them like
See what happens.
6 months apart or something like that."
Yeah. I liked them. I saw them.
I haven't seen either one of them
it was,
actually.
it is what it is. And all right, well, this is. I think this really cleared the palette of The Heretic, Exorcist 2.
Oh yeah, this was
I became a huge Blatty fan after seeing
Ninth
the
Configuration.
Configuration. I really did, and I just thought this. I thought he did I thought he did a really nice job with this film, and I think Brad Dourif. Look, it's about Brad Dourif.
Oh yeah,
Right.
he's great.
He kills it in this one.
Yeah.
And it's a shame that the studio had to come in and do what they did. Although I don't think, and you didn't feel like that was sandwiched in, right?
No, I mean it did feel like it kind of came out of nowhere.
Well, there you go. That means sandwiched in, but okay.
But what I mean by that is like, but at the same time, you have an individual, Father Karras, right?
Yeah.
Who is possessed. So I was kind of expecting it at the same time. You know, I was
Yeah.
like, and like you said, it is called The Exorcist 3.
Well, he didn't want to, but to be fair to Blatty, he wanted to keep it, he wanted
just
to call it Legion.
Right. And you know what? 7 people would have seen it.
I know.
Well, maybe not 7.
It's true.
But, you know,
It's true.
It's let's
true.
be real.
I mean,
you know, he had
you're
to.
right.
You know,
No, there's no question.
Calling
No
it
question.
Exorcist 3, even with the bad taste of Exorcist 2 out there, by saying, "Hey, it's William Peter Blatty. He's back. He's the man behind the Exorcist."
Right. Having said that, you saw the new Exorcist stuff, right?
With the
two
twins.
What'd you
Or the
think?
kids.
They were going for the aesthetic of the first film. Did they pull it off?
I mean, it was
The reviews were
okay.
horrible.
It was
They were supposed to
okay.
do 3. I don't know if they're going to do them anymore,
No,
based on what happened.
No, and the ending was just dead. It just wasn't. It wasn't. I didn't like it. I mean, it was fine. I think it went straight to. I saw it on like HBO Max or something.
Really?
It was. I don't know that it was in the theater. If it was in the theater, it wasn't there long.
Wow.
So it went straight to.
I love The Exorcist.
Mm-hmm.
I love Exorcist 3. I didn't care about
Yeah.
after what happened with Halloween.
Yeah.
Same
it's
director,
the
same guy, and I'm like, okay, they made a big deal out of this, and it didn't work.
Yeah.
I don't think Exorcist is going to work.
Right.
But I want to see. It's like I would like to see another. We watched Russell Crowe's the Pope's Exorcist. I mean, I love Exorcist movies. The Last Exorcism with a guy.
Oh yes,
I mean, they're. I love them.
I do too. And they're
just people can't pull it off. Like,
Did you see there was one? I actually didn't see it, but when I read about it, it sounded like an interesting idea. I think it was called like The Exorcism of Emily Rose or
Oh
something.
yeah,
I have
I've
not
seen
seen
that.
that.
That's good.
I heard it was
Is it?
really good.
So the premise of that is that this is a girl who is supposedly possessed. She really has schizophrenia and epilepsy, and so so whatever. So she goes through these exorcisms, and she subsequently dies from dehydration and some other complications. So the film itself is the priest on trial for the exorcism of Emily Rose. So it's like told, like he's telling the story, and it's really I did like that one a lot. And there was another exorcism movie that I liked that I think you've seen. I can't remember the name of it now. It's about this priest who performs exorcisms, but he knows he's not really exorcising.
That's The Last Exorcist.
The
I
Last
love
Exorcist.
that
Yeah, I liked that one.
it's the guy from Better Call Saul.
Yeah.
The partner, the guy who runs the law firm, is in The Last Exorcist.
Right.
Guy who runs the law firm?
In Better Call Saul.
David Cross? Not David Cross.
No,
but-
his friend who ends up. Did you see Better Call Saul?
Yeah, Bob Odenkirk?
Nope. No, Bob Odenkirk is
It's
Saul.
Yeah.
The guy who was working with the brother. The guy who was partners with the brother. That guy.
That guy. Okay. Yeah, I don't know his name.
He's and he's a guy who's a huckster.
Yeah.
He fakes this stuff, but he ends up at a place that, oh my God, this might actually be
be a
Yeah.
real thing.
Yeah.
Oh wow,
It's
that's
wild.
kind of
It's
a cool.
wild.
It is good.
So
Yeah. That
all right,
sounds pretty
but
cool.
Exorcist 3, good Halloween film. I
Oh
think.
yeah.
I think more people. I mean, I think a lot of people have seen it, but
Yeah.
there are multiple versions out there now. They found some. They dug up some of the original stuff
Oh wow.
before he had to do the exorcism things, and it was all just Brad Dourif, straight up Brad Dourif,
Nice.
and good stuff. But
Cool.
what would you rate it out of 5?
I actually would give this one a 4.
A 4 out of
Yes,
5.
yes.
What's The Exorcist?
The Exorcist is like that's almost perfection. That's
Okay.
a 4.5 because that one is scary.
Exorcist 3,
3.5 stars.
3.5.
I thought it was good. I enjoyed it.
Yeah,
But
you're-
it did
you're
not.
tough. You're tough.
It
You're
did not
tough.
freak me all the way out. The original Exorcist, when I saw it as a teenager, I went to sleep with the Bible.
Oh, listen,
but
Because
that
it
one,
flipped me out.
that one,
That is for me,
suspense
the
in
original
this one.
Exorcist
I
is a
like
solid
the,
5.
The fact
That's
that he would
perfect.
build up the suspense and then release it and
Yeah.
then build it up.
Who's,
and
the
in
first one?
Exorcist 3.
Oh, yeah,
in
me
this one.
too.
That's why I
No,
really
listen,
I prefer that scare to the split pea soup and spinach.
even as an atheist, Exorcist 3, Exorcist
Exorcist one,
first
yeah.
one,
Yeah.
you go, okay,
Maybe.
this is bad. This is,
Yeah. This is-
and when the clock falls off the wall, someone's telling me something
yes.
at that point. But this one, if I don't remember if I don't think I saw this in the movie theater, but I think this would be one of those that would be a much better watch in a movie theater.
Sure.
It's really
Just
good.
because of what's going on.
Yeah.
Well, like the scene
cinematically.
where the ladies on the
Oh, my God.
ceiling
Oh,
was
yeah.
amazing in the theater.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, because it's like so big, and you're just like, somebody look up.
Remember, that wasn't in the original Exorcist. There's a scene where Reagan crab walks was
upstairs.
not in the original. They put that
They
in
put
later.
that in the
The
later
director's
release
cut.
of it. Yes.
So
It's funny. I actually heard a comedian joking about The Exorcist, and he mentions that scene.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, I was watching it
crab
with my
walk?
girlfriend, and she crab walks backwards down the stairs and then pukes up blood. And he's like, he turned to his girlfriend. She's like, oh, I must have forgotten about that. And he's like, how could you forget about that? And I wanted to be in my film nerd self was like, that's actually not in the original Exorcist.
Right, it's not.
It's only in the director's
right,
cut.
yeah. So
So it's perfectly normal that if she saw an older, the original theatrical, that
she wouldn't have seen
been
it. It's not in
Yeah.
there. So I just love the first one. It was all practical.
there. So
There was
good.
no CGI in there.
No.
The thing with where she's hanging, floating.
Hey, Ralph.
Yeah.
There's some message on that.
That's fine.
Okay.
They paint the wires black and white, black and white, black, and the camera can't pick up. It gets confused, can't pick up. So they didn't have to go because in those days you couldn't erase wires like you
Yeah,
can
yeah,
do.
yeah. You
I mean,
can't do it
anyway.
now.
But that's Exorcist is in its own.
Yeah, it's
Right,
on its own.
and
That's
this
right.
one, I'm not saying it's up. I'm going to give it a 4.
Okay.
4.2.
Ooh.
Yeah, I'm getting it 4.5
Wow.
because I just love William Peter Blatty.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think his movies are fascinating, fascinating. And you should check out again, rewatch The Ninth Configuration
Okay.
after because you're not forced to do it now. Just do it on your own, casual. You had to do it before.
Yeah.
Now
That one, hey, at least that one I watched all of.
you did.
I did. I
all the
watched
way
all-
through.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, the funny thing about the Ninth Configuration, I think I even mentioned this at the time, was like, you look on IMDb and it talks about the different cuts. There's like 3 different cuts
I
of
know.
that movie, and the
Again,
one that I
poor
watched
William.
was like the shortest
I know.
one. And I was
don't know,
like,
this guy, you can't
it's-
get a break.
well, it's one of those things where it's like, the other one's 10 minutes longer, and I'm like, 10 minutes can make all the difference in a movie. You can really pull it
Why
together.
does it happen to this guy? I don't understand.
I think
Hollywood's
it happens
a
to
weird
a lot,
place.
a
Hollywood's
lot
weird
of
place.
people.
All right. Good
Cheers.
job. Cheers.
Thank
got
you.
Cheers.
What's it called again?
Pezuz?
Pazuzu's
Hey,
puke.
hang on.
There we go. Yay.
Let's go.
It was
cheers.
good. I drank it.
Cheers. It just-